This is CityCast Twin Cities. I'm Sean McPherson, and here's what the cities are talking about. Today, we're talking about the impact of the largest immigration operation ever on the Twin Cities, including a confirmed fatality in an ICE-involved shooting yesterday at Portland and 34th in South Minneapolis. We'll also talk about how to navigate dry January with a food critic who is sober year-round. Before we get into the show, I want to give a very warm welcome to our newest neighbor, John Z. John Z is an actual neighbor of mine. It's great to have him as a CityCast neighbor as well. To learn more about the perks of being a CityCast neighbor, visit membership.citycast.fm/Twin Cities. For weeks on end in Minneapolis and St. Paul, like many metro areas across our country, we've been dealing with ICE raids. People have been killed by ICE agents in Illinois and California. And yesterday, we have a verified report of a fatal shooting by ICE agents in Minneapolis, Portland, and 33rd. This story has been going on for quite some time now, but it is getting larger and it is getting worse in many ways, in my opinion. And our own Adam Sage actually heard this news early on in our preparation and headed down there and was truly in the thick of things. So I don't need to hear much from my comfortable self sitting in my basement in St. Paul. Adam Sage, thank you for heading down there. It's courageous of you to be down there, and we're hoping to get some updates on what you saw.
Yeah, hey Sean, I am in my car. I just left the area. It's about a little before noon on Wednesday as we're recording this. And as you said, we have confirmed that there has been a fatality from an ICE shooting. According to witnesses here, it was a car and they shot into the car, striking the driver in the head. I saw inside the car the airbag covered in blood. It was not a pretty sight. So I got here at 10:24 a.m. to Portland Ave, and it was in between 33rd and 34th Street. I spoke with someone who lives here. She heard gunshots and a car crash and ran outside to see the body being loaded into an ambulance. And on scene when I got here were ICE agents, both enforcement removal officers and HSI agents, as well as the FBI was on scene, MPD, and Hennepin County sheriffs all present. I saw several city council members on the scene. Specifically, the ones I saw were Robin Wansley, Jason Chavez, Jamal Osman, Elliot Payne, Soren Stevenson, and Jamison Whiting. I spoke with Elliot Payne, and he told me that MPD was on scene trying to get ICE to leave so that FBI could take over the investigation. And shortly after that conversation with Elliot Payne, the ICE agents did start to leave, fighting their way through the crowd that was trying to stop them, throwing snowballs at them. I witnessed and got photos and videos of multiple ICE agents throwing people to the ground, shooting less lethal projectiles right in their faces, pepper spraying, and eventually they released a tear gas canister that severely affected multiple people in the area. I saw more than one person being helped away by others because they couldn't support themselves, as affected as they were with the tear gas. And within an hour of me getting here, by 11:20 a.m., pretty much all the ICE agents were gone, and MPD and Hennepin County sheriffs remained blocking off the crime scene as protesters remained yelling at them for what the protesters believed to be supporting ICE.
As you're talking, Adam, I am filled with gratitude that you're safe and also gratitude that you were able to be there and be our eyes for this event. Three logistical questions come to mind. When you talk about ICE agents fighting through to leave, are you talking about in vehicles or are you talking about them walking?
So most of their vehicles were parked on side streets, not on the strip of Portland Ave where the shooting occurred. So they were trying to leave on foot to get to their vehicles. And protesters were linking arms, standing in their way, and throwing snowballs at them.
And as far as numbers for protesters in particular, at the last time you were on site, how many people do you think, eyeballing it, were out there protesting?
Before the ICE agents left, I would estimate 100 to 150. And at the time that I left, maybe about 50 to 70 protesters remained at the police line where MPD and Hennepin County sheriffs were lined up.
As you're speaking to Elliot Payne, what is the energy or the level of authority you see from these city council members at this very fraught time where there's multiple different agencies trying to figure out the next steps and perhaps have different opinions about what the next steps should be?
So the city council members that I specifically saw, they were walking together. I believe they're all in the kind of progressive block of city council, and they were working together to de-escalate and to communicate with the crowd that MPD was there to try and get ICE to leave. Robin Wansley asked a protester to share their megaphone. The protester handed a megaphone over to her so that she could tell everybody, like, hey, we're trying to get ICE out of here so FBI can take over the investigation. Some protesters didn't take kindly to that and really just wanted to see MPD arrest the ICE agent who shot the woman. Elliot Payne expressed that to me as well, that he very much would like to see that ICE agent arrested, but it seemed like the priority was just de-escalating the situation.
U.S. Senator Tina Smith put out a statement. She is saying that this was actually a U.S. citizen who was shot by ICE agents in Minneapolis, and she's calling for ICE to leave the city entirely, saying that ICE should leave now for everyone's safety. Jacob Fry, the mayor, has come out with a statement saying the presence of federal immigration enforcement agents is causing chaos in our city. We're demanding ICE to leave the city immediately. We stand rock solid with our immigrant and refugee neighbors. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem was in Minnesota this week. She announced an additional 2,000 ICE agents coming into the Twin Cities and suburbs this week, which she and Homeland Security say will be one of the largest operations for ICE anywhere in the country ever. We're just a couple of days into that additional surge of 2,000 more folks this week.
Adam, as somebody who's there, is this a line in the sand moment where you felt while you were there that our response to ICE, our response to these policies in Minneapolis, in the Twin Cities, and in Minnesota is going to be night and day starting today? Or do you feel like this is something where we may see... I can't call anything that's happening normal. We got police sirens going while we're talking right now. We are in a state of crisis already, but we've been in a certain level of crisis. Do you feel like we might be in the same level of crisis 5 days from now, or that this is a line in the sand and things are changing one way or another after today?
It definitely feels like an escalation, I would say, both on the side of the ICE agents and in our response here in the Twin Cities. Tane mentioning that Senator Tina Smith called for ICE to leave our state completely, that feels like a bolder ask than anything I've heard from a senator. I mean, it definitely feels like a line has been crossed with ICE now actually killing someone that lives here.
There's still a lot about the particular incident that is coming out, and potentially by the time people listen to this, they might know more. I will say, when I first heard the reports of this, it has a lot of echoes of Daunte Wright in some ways to me, who was someone who was pulled over by law enforcement, black man who was pulled over and then tried to drive away and was shot. In that case, supposedly shot accidentally. But if you think about sort of the reaction that Minnesota had to that, when you get into this moment where people are being shot by law enforcement, how can it not escalate and put people in a place where they are more nervous and anxious and upset than they were yesterday. And, this is a really difficult place for our community to be in, and to know that this isn't even the end of this operation that we are now supposedly a part of. So I live in a different part of South Minneapolis, and just yesterday there were law enforcement vehicles that all gathered outside of a church in South Minneapolis, and then there were a lot of onlookers and people with phones who were coming around. Those law enforcement identified themselves as members of the sheriff's office, but not all of this crowd believed that they were actually members of the sheriff's office, in part because we have these examples of ICE agents either not identifying themselves or misidentifying themselves. And putting that particular instance on the table is just a way of saying that this is such I say a very precarious, dangerous moment for an entire community to not just feel very uneasy and anxious and hostile towards ICE, but that then flows into feeling that way potentially about any law enforcement. It makes it really, really difficult for any law enforcement to potentially do their jobs in any space, because the community is on red alert for what is happening and whatnot. And so in addition to immigrants and neighbors, there's also a way in which this is going to just make everything about our city and our communities like functioning and law enforcement doing completely non-immigration related things more difficult. And it's just a really bad place for us to be in.
Adam, I appreciate the hard work you did and the courageous work you did being there. I know that a lot of our community is out there protesting. Also, a lot of our community is out there constitutionally observing what is going on. And that should not be dangerous work, but it is. And your presence there has been helpful for everyone, including myself, who gets to hear from you today. And thank you for that. I'm sorry you were there. I'm sorry that we have to have somebody there. I'm sorry that these things are happening in our city, and I don't think sorry cuts it. But today I do want to say thank you for what you did by going down there this morning.
Thanks, Sean.
More than ever, we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you if you were there. We want to hear from you about your thoughts about what is happening in the Twin Cities and what on a larger scale is happening all around the country. Send us a text, leave us a voicemail on the CityCast Twin Cities hotline, 612-217-0637. There is more to discuss. Before we do that, we're going to take a quick break. Kirstie Kimball, you are a celebrated food critic who runs a Substack called Beyond Beurre Blanc. You are sober 365 days a year, and you've been that for years. So first off, I want to give you a sincere congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, second off, I've been really enjoying your writing on your Substack, Beyond Beurre Blanc. And you put out a piece last year called Will Restaurants Take Sobriety Seriously in 2025? And spoiler alert, the answer was no. You still see a lot of ways in which restaurants come up short in terms of sobriety. I wasn't frankly surprised by that, but I just read this article, and what I was surprised at was the lack of respect for sobriety from people who want to serve. People want to entertain and to host. And one of the most important things is to make people feel welcome. Come on in. What are your dietary concerns? What are your things you're not able to do because of your religion? And that part of hosting is being hospitable. And it seems like time after time, and granted, you have a huge ass sample set. You go to restaurants all the time, but time after time, you've gotten really disrespected when you've just been trying to make sure that you and other customers don't have alcohol. The term you use is come across the bar. Is that kind of a term of art in this world?
Yeah. So like something crossing the bar. It's like if alcohol crosses the bar, there's some problems in your program, right? If shellfish, crosses the counter, there's some type of problem where you're not actually identifying the seriousness of a shellfish allergy. And I consider alcohol the same.
Shellfish, I guess, can really kill you. So I guess shellfish is really serious as well.
Yeah.
Alcohol is deadly serious. And you talk about some alcohol coming into your body from a purportedly NA Bloody Mary up in Duluth that ended up not being. Frankly, it looks like you had a good interchange with that restaurant. But you are doing important work to make sure that restaurants take sobriety seriously, and also doing important work for folks who are sober but are stuck just like enjoying Diet Cokes and wondering where they can go deeper into this world of NA cocktails. You're doing a lot of writing about this, including 12 days and 12 pieces for Dry January. So can you walk us through some of the coverage you're doing about sobriety?
Yeah, totally. So I'll start by talking about that piece that you brought up, Sean. Is 2026 the year that restaurants will take addiction seriously? I talk about, the challenge in the restaurant industry. It has the highest rate of illicit drug use, 19%, and the highest rate of substance abuse, 17% of any industry. And so this is a challenge that comes from within. It's not just about me as a guest. And so that piece really is about how do we take care of restaurant workers, not just the guests. And there's I think a sister piece to it called 7 Things Restaurants Can Do to Take Your Menu, NA menu, from good enough to sober centered, where I talk about give different names to the drinks, right? I ordered a non-alcoholic Bloody Mary, but you could have called it something different, right? Like you could have called it even like a Bloody Alice would have been better than a Bloody Mary. Because, if a server just is in the weeds or it's really loud in there, which it was, they might just hear Bloody Mary, right? So things like that, as well as, looking at distinguishing drinks physically. So Steady Pour, which is one of my favorite places to go and get non-alcoholic cocktails, puts a flower in every non-alcoholic drink. And it's not a cheap flower. It's not like they're putting like a bad flower in there. It's not plastic. It's like these are expensive to buy. And it's their way of signifying the drink. But also, let's say you're pregnant and you don't want anybody to know, the drink is NA when you get it. And then you can throw the flower away and go mingle with other people, which I think those types of things I give tips and tricks for. And then I just talk about my favorite places to get NA cocktails in the Twin Cities. So there's 9 places that I really, really love, including Steady Pour, including Muriel. They have a really, really beautiful small NA menu out in St. Paul. And then I talk about the state wide in general, because as Sean, that's what I do, right? I really love to go out into the state. So I talk about the most rural expanses have bush NA because it's bush country. And do I want to drink a bush NA? No, but I'm so happy that they have it. And then I have a piece coming up about, NA pairings, where I'm talking about how do you pair NA with food? And I know, Tane, you have a thought about that.
So a good friend of mine, Megan, is one of the co-founders of Dry Wit, which is a non-alcoholic wine. I've had all 3. They're really great wines. And I think that when I talked to Megan, my friend, she was talking about, they are really trying to push back against the idea that somehow NA is, some sort of consolation prize to wine that you actually want to drink. They are trying to make really good wine that people will enjoy. And part of that, they said, is that they really are pushing people to think about what are the pairings with these wines, the food pairings that make it feel exciting and like you are part of a good meal, not just sort of like a drink. So I was asking Megan, and one of their wines, the red one, is called Bruce.
My boyfriend. I call Bruce my boyfriend. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's great. It's I've had it. It's made with bay leaves. It's deep and rich and herbally. And then we were talking about this. It particularly is good in winter.
Yeah.
I've had it before where it goes really well with meats or with a hearty soup or something like that. And just even that sort of thought process of I'm not just sort of doing this because I'm not drinking, but this will go really well with this thing. I think it's kind of a paradigm shift for some folks.
It is, yeah. And I released, every year I release my essential bottles for 2026, and Bruce is actually on that. And if you're interested in how do I at home figure out how to pair food and drink, That's what I do like all day, every day, right? My job is to figure out a lot of the times, is this NA pairing good with the food when I'm writing a review? And so I actually, in that bottle list, talk about here are the things I love to pair with each one of these dishes. And for me, I really love to pair Bruce with like a steak or a duck, anything you'd pair a standard red with, because it has some of those flavors. And the non-alcoholic reds are mostly not very good, but I think Bruce is the best one and is really, truly excellent. So if anyone's interested in that, it has everything from a non-alcoholic champagne to all of the NA wines. And then it has, bottles that I love for after dinner. And then some really weird bottles, like a bottle that at one of my dinner parties, I paired it with dessert, and it is a love or hate bottle called Woodnose Sacra, and it is just fermented maple syrup. And some people were like, this is the best thing I've ever tasted. And some people were like, this is the most disgusting bottle I've ever had. And so there's that fun sense of play, with non-alcoholic wine and beverage going on right now.
Can I ask one question? Because Dry Wit is a Minnesota-based non-alcoholic wine. Very cool. So Dry Wit is made right here in Minnesota. Is Minnesota, like, I don't know, how do we do sort of in terms of like us making some of these things versus them being made other places? Is Minnesota ahead of the curve, part of it? I don't know.
Ahead of the curve, for sure. So, I think Dry Wit is doing a lot. And I actually have a piece that I'll be quoting the other founder, Peter, in talking about how they actually get the small bubbles in their wine, which you might not think about that as a consumer, about how do you get those teeny tiny bubbles, but they are. And a spoiler alert is that the answer is that you have to build a really tiny bomb, essentially. So there's all these restrictions that go into place, because at any moment, if you don't have everything in place, it could be dangerous. So normally they come from fermentation of the actual wine itself, but since we don't get that in NA wine, we have to build it. And so there's only a couple places in the world that you can get sort of these containers built in order to get that that small bubble, which is really cool. We also have, one of the like leading alcohol removers for beer in the States. So we are really ahead of the curve, and yet you'll see that in a lot of our breweries. Like I think Bauhaus is a really, really, really good beer. You're going to see that on my NA beer list. And I think Minnesota has a lot of people really investing in the can game. Like we have Tres Leches too, which I think has the best NA vermouth, but you can only find it at certain bars, as well as their sort of kombucha drinks. In terms of where we are with NA cocktails, I'd say we're in the middle of the pack. We're not yet at a place where we have the advanced programs like they have in New York and LA, but it's gotten a lot better over the last few years. We're seeing much less, I call it oops all juice, where every single cocktail on the menu is just orange juice, grapefruit juice, lime juice, lemon juice, right? And we're starting to see things like oversteeped wine, which gives you like this really good mouth feel to go back in and get another bite of whatever fatty cut of meat is in front of you, as well as people playing around with the spirits. So I think in the next few years, we're going to be able to rival some of those bigger cities. And the can game, though, like the beers, the NA wine alts, as well as some of the kombucha and the spirit game here is really cool.
We want to hear from you. How are you navigating dry January? Send us a text, leave us a voicemail on the CityCast Twin Cities hotline, 612-217-0637. We adore hearing from you, and we'd love to include that feedback in an upcoming mailbag segment. There's more to discuss. Before we do that, we're going to take a quick break. Kirstie, your work helps eliminate some of the stigma of wanting a good experience as a sober person, because I think a lot of sober people are conditioned to go, you effed up, you lost out, and for the rest of your life, you have to suck a soda water while the rest of us have fun. For a sober person who has never taken that step to sort of advocate for themselves at a bar or a cocktail spot, what would you advise sort of, I don't even mean what you order, I mean sort of how you conduct yourself as you make sure that you get good treatment at the bar as a sober person?
Yeah, I love that question, Sean. I think one of the things is if you look at the 9 places I listed of where to go and drink, I did that work for you. If you are a sober person and you don't want to have to say, hey, I'm an alcoholic, which I actually say in restaurants because me saying, hey, I don't drink or hey, I'm sober didn't always work in not getting non-alcoholic beverages. So I actually just say, hey, I'm an alcoholic. And people are like, got it. And they write it down. If you don't want to say that, or if you're not an alcoholic, right, and you don't want to say, hey, I'm pregnant, or whatever it is, the reason you're not drinking, going to the places I recommend, I've vetted them for you. And so you don't have to do that work. If you are going out on your own, you can be really, really clear with this wait staff, with the service staff, and be like, I can't have alcohol. You don't have to give a reason, right? You can just say, I can't have alcohol. And then I confirm that my drink is non-alcoholic upon arrival. Because every once in a while, someone will be like, it's not. And then they'll take it. This actually happened to me last week in Madison. I was like, this is a beer in a pint glass that's all the way up. And I thought, I'm actually drinking an NA beer right now. I was like, I thought I had a can this side. So I was like, is that non-alcoholic? And she was like, no, and took it. And so those two things, I really can't have alcohol when they ask for your restrictions. And then is this non-alcoholic? Most of the time, that is going to get you where you need to go.
Kirstie, how do you feel about sober tourism? I got a friend, my best friend in the world, doesn't drink. And so sometimes I'll grab a Lagunitas hop water and sometimes I'll grab a Jameson. And a lot of people are going, oh, I'm going to be sober for a month. Does that bug you, or are you welcoming everybody to the party?
I want to welcome everybody to the party because the more that people drink non-alcoholic drinks, and there's also zebra striping, that people drink an alcoholic drink and then they drink a non-alcoholic drink, the more options there are for me. So it's selfish, but like, yes, go out, do dry January, because then bars will be like, okay, even the drinkers are getting in on this. And then they'll actually have more options for people like me. So I love it.
I love the zebra striping. This is like, AKA like drinking over 40. I feel like for some of us, where it's like, you get to a place where you're like, this feels much healthier, even if I do still consume alcohol.
So Kirstie, for folks who want to learn more about Dry January and you're writing about it, what's the best place for them to visit to get up to speed?
Yeah, so you can either go to my Instagram, which is Beyond Beurre Blanc, or you can go to my Substack. It's beyondbeurreblanc.substack.com. From January 1 to the 12th, I'm releasing a piece every single day, so you can get on there and see. My beer list is dropping tomorrow. I have a piece about an NA pairing I really love in the Twin Cities that I'll be talking about. And then I have a lot of cheat sheets. So year round, if you walk into Marigold to go and get a non-alcoholic bottle, you can just have my bottle list up and ask them what they have. So those are the places I'd recommend you go and take a look.
Now we're going to welcome on one of our creative producers, Tiffany Bowie, to talk about one of our sponsors. Hey, Tiffany.
Hi, Sean.
Now, the Minnesota Wild and Xcel Energy have teamed up to create the Community Power Play Grant Program. They're awarding 3 $10,000 grants during the 2025-26 season to grow hockey across Minnesota.
This week, Thief River Falls Amateur Hockey Association was chosen as the second grant recipient.
Now, this organization serves 210 families with youth hockey players between ages 3 and 15. They provide equipment, ice time for practices, and games, and they also host Try Hockey for Free nights.
I would love to try hockey for free.
As you know, I do not know how to ice skate, so I don't think trying hockey for free would be a good proposition for me. But hey, a boy can always dream. Let's talk about this $10,000 grant. It's going to reduce ice time expenses and help keep registration fees lower, addressing the main barrier preventing families from enrolling their children in hockey.
If someone in your network is involved with youth hockey in Minnesota, encourage them to apply for a Community Power Play grant.
Applications for Period 3 are open until February 15th and focus on investments and upgrades for municipally owned rinks. You can learn more by searching Xcel Energy Community Power Play today. That's all for today here on CityCast Twin Cities. I'm your host, Sean McPherson. Tane Danger, Kirstie Kimball, Adam Sage, and Tiffany Bowie, thank you for being here today. You can get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to the CityCast Twin Cities newsletter. If you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with somebody who knows how to ice skate? We'll see you back here tomorrow for more news from around the city.